Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that fear no longer exists. No fear of failure, no fear of embarrassment, no fear of rejection, no fear of death. At first, it sounds like the greatest thing that could ever happen. People finally chase their dreams, speak their minds, take risks, live freely. But before the first day ends, something strange begins to happen. Hospitals start filling up, accidents begin increasing, and across the world, people start making decisions they never would have made before. Because humanity is about to learn something terrifying. Fear was never the enemy. The next morning, the entire world celebrates. People quit jobs they hate. Students suddenly stop worrying about exams. Shy people walk up to strangers and say exactly what's on their minds. For the first time in history, humanity feels completely free. No anxiety, no nervousness, no hesitation. And for a few hours, the world seems better than ever. But nobody notices the danger yet, because the biggest threats often arrive disguised as freedom. By afternoon, small problems start appearing. People cross busy roads without checking traffic. Workers ignore safety equipment. Drivers speed through dangerous turns. Because fear isn't just an emotion. Fear is information. It's your brain's warning system. And without that warning, people begin treating danger like it doesn't exist. Not because they're brave, because they literally can't feel afraid. Most people think courage means having no fear. But psychology says the opposite. Real courage is feeling fear and moving forward anyway. Without fear, courage becomes impossible. Because courage requires something to overcome. And that's when humanity begins realizing they may have lost more than they gained. Then something even stranger happens. Crime starts changing, not increasing, changing, because criminals no longer fear consequences, but victims no longer fear threats. The entire balance of society begins shifting. For centuries, fear quietly helped maintain order. Now that invisible system is disappearing, and nobody knows what comes next. Relationships begin changing too. People confess feelings they've hidden for years. Secrets are revealed. Arguments become brutally honest. At first, this seems positive, until people realize something important. Fear doesn't only stop us from speaking. Sometimes, it stops us from hurting each other. Within a week, extreme sports become normal. People climb dangerous structures, jump from impossible heights, attempt challenges no sane person would attempt before. Social media explodes. Everyone wants bigger risks, bigger thrills, bigger excitement, because without fear, the brain starts searching for stronger stimulation. But here's what scientists discover. Fear evolved for a reason. For millions of years, it helped humans survive, avoid predators, avoid dangerous situations, protect loved ones. And now, for the first time in history, humanity is trying to live without one of its most important survival tools. Then comes the first major disaster. A giant storm approaches a coastal city. Meteorologists issue warnings. Authorities tell everyone to evacuate. But nobody feels afraid. Nobody feels urgency. Nobody feels danger. And thousands choose to stay. Because information alone isn't enough. People also need emotion. At this point, humanity finally asks the question nobody considered before. What if fear isn't a weakness? What if fear is actually one of our greatest strengths? Because every problem appearing across society seems connected to the same missing piece. The ability to recognize danger. The ability to protect ourselves. The ability to pause before making a terrible mistake. And that's when scientists make a discovery that changes everything. A discovery so shocking, it forces humanity to rethink what fear really is. Scientists begin studying something unexpected. Without fear, humans are not becoming stronger. They are becoming unstable. Not physically, but mentally. People are taking risks without understanding consequences. But the real shock comes later. When brain scans reveal something terrifying, fear was never just about danger. It was also researchers find something deeper. Fear doesn't just stop danger. It teaches patterns. When you touch fire, you remember pain. When you fail, you remember consequences. Without fear, humans stop learning from mistakes. Because fear is the emotional glue that connects action with memory. But then comes a disturbing question. If fear helps humans learn, if fear protects survival, if fear shapes decision-making, then what happens when it disappears completely? Scientists decide to run a simulation, a world identical to ours, but without fear. The results are shocking. At first, everything looks normal. Then slowly, society starts collapsing in small ways. People forget caution, ignore risks, break basic safety rules, not out of rebellion, but absence of fear. And the system begins breaking silently. But something even stranger appears. People without fear don't just take risks. They also stop feeling guilt, stop feeling hesitation, stop feeling emotional resistance, and slowly, they stop understanding consequences of their actions. Not because they are evil, but because fear is part of emotional balance. Without fear, people start acting differently, not just brave, but unpredictable. Some become hyper-risk takers. Some become emotionally numb. Some lose empathy entirely. Because fear also helps us understand boundaries. Without it, those boundaries begin to disappear. Scientists now realize something shocking. Fear was never just a survival mechanism. It was also a moral compass. It helped humans decide what is safe, what is dangerous, and what is wrong. Without fear, even right and wrong begin to blur. To confirm their theory, scientists run one final test. They restore fear to a small group, and immediately, behavior changes. People become careful again, thoughtful again, human again, because fear was never a limitation. It was guidance. And finally, the truth becomes clear. Fear is not the enemy of humanity. It is one of its most important systems. It protects, it teaches, it warns, and without it, even intelligence becomes dangerous, because knowledge without caution leads to destruction. So what if nobody felt fear? At first, it looked like freedom. Then it became chaos. And finally, it became a lesson. Because fear was never meant to stop us from living. It was meant to help us live correctly. And maybe the real question is not, what if we had no fear? But instead, what happens when we learn to control it? Because in the end, fear doesn't define humanity. How we respond to it does. If this video made you think, subscribe to Human Paradox for more mind-bending psychology and what-if stories.